Lauren, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Jacob Price, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
One more minute. Anup, welcome to class.
Thank you. Hope you're doing well.
Last class, we saw named ranges, cell comments and notes, either one. A note is a threaded comment. Either one is fine for explaining your work. We saw a sorting example, keyboard shortcuts, the control arrow keys, contents versus display. And we saw how to copy or move a sheet to another book. And we saw the if worksheet function. We begin a topic of linear programming or optimization models. Since analytics is becoming so prevalent, it's important to stress the essential nature of accuracy. I don't know what you can read. Okay. This guy is getting ready to make his first bungee cord jump of his life. His trainers don't look very bright, like maybe they're from Arkansas, Alabama, anywhere but where I live. We're 130 feet up and we've got 50 yards of bungee cord. 50 yards, 50 times 3 is 100. Allowing for stretching, that's perfect. No, that's not perfect. They're going to get ready to have close up and not so friendly with the ground. Let's look at the class pack, pages 4. I was already there. Today and Monday, I'll teach you linear programming or optimization modeling. Look at the classic types of problems that are being solved, how to obtain a solution using the Excel solver. And on Monday, we'll continue linear program and finish up with pivot tables, which are very valuable in general, including for updating parameters used in a linear program. I'm not big on definitions. I will read this once and then read it again after I show you each example, most clearly understood from examples. Choosing values of changing cells, also called variable cells, to optimize there's only one target cell or objective. Constraints, equations, and less than or equal to and greater than or equal to limit the values the variables can take. For example, if you have an investment linear program with 100 potential investment instruments, you have 100 changing cells, 100 variable cells, indicating how much money is invested in the first instrument, the second instrument, the third instrument. And a constraint says the summation of the investments cannot exceed the $3 million budget. Maximize profit or net present value or market share, or minimize the cost of doing the manufacturing or the time to manufacture or inventory or distance. Most clearly understood from examples. They're typically quite large. The last one I worked on was with Ingram Barge. It had 30,000 variables. Always one target cell in the model. The next slide page just shows that linear programming is popular. Among Fortune 500 firms, they use linear programming or optimization for how much should you produce of various items in various time periods? How much inventory should you keep on hand? Which vendors should you use? How many people should you hire to work the various shifts? Finance, how much money should you invest in each of many instruments? Can you hear me okay in the room? Let's practice voting again with the Zoomers. There's a chat, well, I guess that's from the previous meeting. Vote yes or no, please. There are 5 of you, not counting me. Vote yes if you can hear me okay. No if you can't hear me. You need to learn how to do this. Last section, still many of the people could not vote. 2 yeses. I don't think that means 4 people can't hear me. Among the yesers, that's Jacob Price. Can you post a chat telling your classmates how you did that?
Yeah, it might just be easier to say it if that's good. But yeah, I just went to participants and then I have the option of raise hand, vote yes, vote no. I have go slower and go faster. I don't know what that means. And then more.
Okay, typically I'm asking only for a yes vote or a no vote.
Right. Yeah, that's just under when I click participants, it just pops up and it's
When
kind
you
of
click participants, but
there's a list of participants. For me, it's on the right hand side, and then at the bottom of that list, there's options. Raise hand being one of those, and then yes and no.
Yeah, I
apparently,
see that same thing and I go to reactions. I hit yes. Does it show up now?
Do you see my yes?
I see your list, Lauren.
Lauren Mitchell, I don't see a yes. Well, I show myself, Lauren has not voted, Mason Miller has not voted, Anoop has not voted, Jacob Price, I show has voted.
Uh,
1, 2, 3, 4.
I clicked yes a few times. I don't know how long it stays once you click it, but it seems to disappear after a little while.
It should stay until I check clear all. Now it says I have 6 participants, including me, Lauren, Mason, Anoop, Jacob, and someone's name is not listed.
I think that might be me. Michael Bradshaw.
Michael Bradshaw, yeah.
I did vote. Can you see mine?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see mine? I just voted yes.
I cannot see Lauren Mitchell's, but I do see 2 yeses. I need to look into that. Actually, I intended to be anonymous. I don't want to know who you are. Because sometimes I ask him, I'm going too fast and I don't want anybody, I do not want anybody to be embarrassed by saying, yes, you're going too fast. I can't keep up. All right, let's go. Marketing and accounting applications as well. We're going to use the sum product worksheet function extensively. It is the summation of the multiplications of corresponding cells in 2 or more arrays. Let's go to Intro Prod AB before we continue. The book is Intro Prod AB. The sheet is sum product. I want to take the sum product of the yellow range and the green range. The summation of the products, that is the multiplications of the corresponding cells. 1 times 10 plus 2 times 15, that's 30, and 10 is 40, plus 3 times 10 is 70. Prototypically, we purchased 1 item at $10, 2 items, $15 each, and 3 items, $10 each. How many of you use the sum product in a past life? I think several of you have. Hold your hand up high if you use it a lot, and a little bit halfway if you've used it. Okay, that's fine too. Okay, I would really like to be able to go here, but I can't. I'm going to have to look into that. I did not have this problem in mod 2 or mod 1, and yet I am having this problem. Maybe my settings have changed. Another example is the sum product of the 3 separate ranges. The sum product of HJ3, HJ4, HJ5. 1 times 10 times 2, that's 20, plus 2 times 10 times 0, that's nothing, plus 3 times 10 times 3, that's 90, is 110. In the red sheet, which I will not cover yet, I'll cover it in 3 weeks, I think, I talk about the sum product with criteria, logical constraints. If you're bored because you've already seen the sum product, glance. Oh, I'm making a mistake. You see, I'm in edit mode. I have a nervous habit of clicking here and here, and I'm changing the formula because I activated it and did not press the escape key. So consider the red if you're bored. One more example. I want the sum product of EG13 and EG14. The sum product is fully equivalent to the longhand method. E13 star E14 plus F13 star F14 plus G13 star G14. In a large example, obviously you cannot use this approach. By definition, it's impractical in a large example. The sum product can always be used. Consider this. If I insert a new column before column F, right click, insert, and I put data in row 13 and 14, 10 and 10. The longhand method specifically excludes the newly inserted data. The sum product includes the 10 times 10. Excel guesses, and is probably right, that if you have a table of numbers that you're doing calculations on, and you put some new numbers insert into the middle or near the left, near the beginning or near the end, you probably mean to include those new numbers. So the sum product is important for scalability. Consider that commonly analytics projects start with a small prototype example with only 5 investments, fully intending to extend it to include 5,000 investments, or a small prototype with only 1 factory and 2 warehouses, fully intending to extend it to be much, much larger. So even though the longhand method works for the prototype, you should consider using the sum product if you think it might expand to the point where the sum product is necessary. Let me now delete the new column F because I have some directions that refer to columns. Another example. Let's put A19 near the top left of your screen. These expenses were incurred in entertaining clients, going to managerial conferences, visiting other office sites. Most of the expenses were charged directly to the company on corporate credit cards. Some of them, however, I need to reimburse because they were charged to the employee's personal charge. There are many examples where you want to add up some of the numbers, but not all. I'm going to use the sum product of all of the costs, B24, B50, comma, C24, C50. The C is the indicator constants. Empty cell or zero means ignore it. Or 0 times these two irrelevant numbers plus 1 times this number plus 0 times these irrelevant numbers plus 1 times this one. The alternative is to make a very complex formula which points to each and every one that you want. In a large example, that's pretty hard. You might have 50 terms here out of the thousands. And then you realize, oops, I forgot to include this one. With the sum product approach, the only change necessary is to enter a 1. And the sum product updates to include the new term, the new cell. Whereas the longhand method, you'd have to change the formula. That is tedious and error prone. So consider using the sum product with indicated 1s. I gave this lecture to Boeing Aircraft in suburban Seattle in 2 or 3 years ago. And some of the seminar attendees confided to me that they would probably use this approach rather than that approach. If it's only 2 numbers, 3 numbers, this approach is fine. But what if it increases to a larger number of numbers? Take a moment and review the sum product, and then we'll work an in-class problem. Let's work a problem. I'll zoom small initially. We are a drugstore chain. These are the items that we purchased, these pharmaceuticals. We bought 30 at $8.10 and also 60 at $12.22 for each, and also 35 at this price. Give me a formula that calculates the total cost paid. The cell comment shows a strong hint the displayed answer should be 58,532. I'm going to zoom up now. In Q35, I want the sum product of P 5 to 34, comma, Q, Control Shift down arrow, 5 to 34. And I don't feel like typing the close parentheses, so I'll just let Excel provide it. The content for the first question for Q35 is shown in the formula bar. The next problem is to use the indicator ones, which say vendor A, yes, supplied these. We purchased these from vendor A, but not these. And this one, but not these. Let me work this for you and show you a favorite shortcut of mine. The formula I want is similar to, a little bit different from what I already have. So let me copy the existing formula, not like this. Can you see the moving marquee in the back row? Okay, that will not paste properly. Instead, I go to the formula bar, select Control or Command C, escape or click the X, activate the target, the paste area, and paste it. Column is too narrow. That is similar to what I want. In fact, I want the sum product of P 5 to 34, comma Q 5 to 34, comma R 5 to 34. And the answer displays 3098 as given by the hint. Copying and pasting from the formula bar to get a head start. Let me give you one more tip. I want to copy this to the right, but as I copy to the right, I want the P to be unchanged. I want the reference to Q to be unchanged. I want the reference to R to update. When I copy to the right, I mean R to change to S. Watch me carefully as I select the first two ranges. I need 8 dollar signs. I need $P, $5, colon, $P, $34, $Q, blah, 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 blah. I can do it with a single keystroke. The F4 keyboard shortcut. That will toggle through the 4 possibilities. Mac users use Command T. Let me undo that. Select the cells that you want to reference absolutely. And Mac users Command T, Windows users F4. You could toggle fully absolute, partially absolute, partially absolute, fully relative. That's what I want, then drag it to the right. I give you some hints in the comments about what the answers should be to check your work. 228 and 0. My doctor said I have split personalities. I don't believe that. Neither do I. Let me display the formulas. We needed the formula in column Q and the formula in column R, which copies over. These two that are visible on the screen. Sum product of P 5 to 34, comma Q 5 to 34, and the sum product of fully absolute P5 to 34, comma Q5 to 34, comma relative R5 to 34. Please review that outside of class. Back to the class pack. Some terminology. Decision variables is a term used interchangeably with changing cells or variable cells. Objective function is a phrase, a term used interchangeably with target cell, objective. We'll be using that terminology in 3 minutes. We're going to use color conventions to distinguish between different types of cells. Data cells, also called input cells. You don't have to memorize these, but you got to know how to use them. More in a moment. Constants that cannot change in the model. For example, the interest rate that the company mandates that we use for NPV calculations. Of course, interest rates can change in 6 months, but within the analysis that we're doing, it is given that interest rate will be this, gray shading or gray fill with blue border. The demands that we have to meet can surely change in 6 months or 3 months even, but within the analysis we're doing, the demands are considered given data, blue-gray. Changing cells, also called variable cells, up here. Variables, you can type anything you want in those, they get a red border. For example, how much money should we borrow from each of these 5 instruments, bonds, long-term debt, and so forth? You can type any number you want in there. How many products to make in the various time periods? How many people to hire? Changing cells, you put a number in there. Red border, no fill. Output cells like row sums or column sums are the sum product that we're learning. Get no shading. Totals, present value. The target cell gets a double black border. That's the one we're maximizing or minimizing. Let's look at 3 examples. At the end of today's class, and after you put in an hour reviewing those examples, I hope the concept of a linear program will be fairly clear. A plant has 3 machines, page 7 of the class pack. They are numbered 1, 2, and 3. It manufactures 2 products, A and B. The plant runs 21 days a month, 16 hours a day. Multiplying 21 times 16 gives us 336 hours are available in the given monthly planning period for each machine. $100,000 overhead. This is the product flow. Product A needs to be processed by machine 1, taking 2 hours. Product A skips machine 2. In other words, product A takes 0 hours on machine 2 and then goes to machine 3, taking 2 hours on machine 3 for each unit of A. Product B skips machine 1, equivalently takes 0 hours on machine 1. Product B takes 2.5 hours on machine 2 and then an hour and a half on machine 3. They each take 4 hours to manufacture. 2 plus 2 for the A's, 2.5 plus 1.5 for the B's. Some additional info. Product A sells for $600. That's our revenue from each one. Variable cost of $50 for materials gives us a net contribution. 600 minus 50 is 550. Product B sells for the same 600. Materials cost are 100. Contribution is 600 minus 100 is 500. In addition, we cannot sell more than 140 of A or B, so marketing doesn't want us to manufacture more than 140 A's, 140 B's. Marketing requests that we make at least 75 A's. No such requirement for B's. Zoomers. Mason Miller, you there?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay? My voice is getting weak and I'm talking through a mask. Lauren, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You can certainly tell me the connection is getting bad, which is a euphemism for my voice is for a euphemism for I'm not talking loud enough. I request that you do that if there's a problem. Anytime, tell me that. Okay. Back to Excel. So I was finishing up the class pack, I think, which is repeated in the Excel file. Okay, let's stay in the class pack for a moment. Page 8, text verbal. I want to choose how many A's and B's to make. There will be 2 changing cells. How many A's do I make? And how many B's do I make? To maximize profit, not to minimize cost, considering 3 types of constraints. There are no more than 336 hours available on the machines. Remember, a moment ago, I said the plant is open for 16 hours per day, so many days a month, 21 days in a month. I gave you the fact that machine 1 is available for 336 hours. Machine 2 is available for 336 hours. Machine 3 is available for 336 hours. That's one set of constraints called the operations constraints. Marketing constraints, the number of A's that we manufacture has to be between 75 and 140. Marketing constraints, the number of B's that we make, no more than 140. If you like, you can look at this algebraic model. We won't use it in the course. I'm going to skip this, but I emphasize that I have summary notes of what I'm going to say for the next 10 minutes. I will come back to this page. Intro prod AB is where we're headed next. We finished the sheet Sumproduct with logic. That's in case you're bored. I'll come to that in another few weeks. Before class, add in solver from the syllabus. I'm not going to cover that sheet. Problem description is a repeat in case you didn't have the class pack. Let's go to the linear programming model. Let's set up and solve the linear program and then do some financial analysis, present value and rate of return. I repeat the legend. Blue-gray is data. that cannot change within the model. Any shade of blue, any thickness border. That's kind of hard to see. I think I'll make it thicker later. All right, so the $550 per unit contribution to profit and overhead for product A is given. $500 for product B, profit. Overhead, $100,000 is given. Machine availabilities of 336 are given. That could change in 6 months, but not within the context of the analysis. We have 336 within this linear program. The marketing positions between 75 and 140 are fixed constants in this analysis. In another linear program that we solve next month, they might be different, but not within this one. We cannot change that. 0 to 140. That's the data cells. The red border changing cells, there are 2 of them. How many A's do we make? How many B's do we make? There is no changing cells for how much machine 1 hours do we use. That's calculated. How many hours do we use on machine 2? That's calculated. And the target cell is marked by the double black border. Let's start with the target cell. Let me see if I can fine tune this. B20 is the sum product of BC16, BC4 minus the $100,000 in B5. Let me clear the changing cells. Suppose we make 1A, then we make $550 minus the 100 grand, which nets to 99,000 minus 99,450. Suppose we make 100 A's, then we make 5,500. That's 55,000. Convince yourself of that, please. $550 times 100 is 45,000, is 55,000, but we're subtracting the 100 grand. Suppose we make 100 B's in addition. There's no reason to do this in your head. Solver's going to do it for me. But I see a problem. Look at the cell I just turned yellow, gold in that display. We don't have that many hours. So we cannot hope to solve these problems by hand. We're going to use the Excel solver to do so. First of all, we have the data cells, blue-gray. Second of all, we have the target cell. We have constraints that whatever number of A's we choose to make, it must be bigger than or equal to 75 and no larger than 140. B's, bigger than or equal to 0, smaller than or equal to 140. Marketing is happy with 100 and 100, but operations is not. We don't have enough machine 3 capacity. So let me clear those. They are misleading. Let me finish before I give you a few minutes. Look at this range. I'm going to turn them all yellow. How many machine hours do we consume of machine 1? How many hours do we consume of machine 1? That number, calculation number, must be such that it's no larger than 336. Let's look at the D11, the sum product of BC11, BC16. Let me identify cells by giving them a ridiculously large font. That's BC11. In D11, we have the sum product of BC11 with the changing cells, which in this case is 0. But solver, or we're going to populate those. Let's put 10 A's and 20 B's. That's okay. The yellow cells are not too big, but that's error prone and impractical in a large example. I'm just testing the formulas. Let me give you 3 minutes to review this sheet. The blue-gray cells, you should not use yellow shading. I do it for teaching temporarily. The only colors allowed are red border for the changing cells, as the legend shows, blue-gray, and double black border with no other colors. All right, I'll give you to 5:40. Next, I want to show you how to obtain a solution using the solver. I call your attention to the fact that in the class pack on page 9, I write what I'm getting ready to do, what I'm getting ready to say right now. First of all, you have to complete the Excel file with data cells, that's the blue-gray, changing cells, that's the red border, and output cells, the formula. Here is the legend from page 11. Summarize the target cell. There can only be one target cell in the model. Summarize the target cell in one output cell. It's the one with the double black border, B20. Summarize the left side of each constraint in one output cell and the right side of each constraint in one cell. Every constraint involves one cell is less than or equal to another cell, or one cell is equal to another cell, or one cell is greater than or equal to another cell. Each constraint has two associated cells, the left cell and the right cell. For example, operations constraints. We're going to say D as in delta 9 less than or equal to F9. And separately, D10 is less than or equal to F10. And separately, D11 is less than or equal to F11. Marketing, we're going to say B16 greater than or equal to 75, B16 less than or equal to 140, and so forth. This is what I'm going to do right now. This is how I'm going to populate the solver settings. It continues to the next page. Data, solver, I've already populated it. Let me reset all. That's serious, so it'll ask me to confirm. And that's how you start with an empty solver dialog box. Answer the questions. Where is the objective? It's the one with the double black border, B20. Do we want to maximize or minimize? We're dealing with profit, so we want to maximize. We will never use this option, value of. It's a holdover from when computers were much slower and you didn't have the time, the hours and hours it used to take to solve, to get the real solution. You could tell it to quit when it gets a pretty good value. We'll never use it. By changing cells, identify the red border, that's BC16. Alt print screen, the phone rings, you can close it, you don't lose anything. This is my solver dialog box with the settings so far. B20 is to be maximized by changing BC16. Now we pick up later, solver, data tab, solver, add. I want to add 3 constraints at once. These 3 yellow cells are each less than or equal to these 3 blue-gray cells. Okay, let me do an alt print screen so you can see a larger image. Close solely for teaching. This is my new solver settings. B20 is to be maximized by changing BC16. My first set of constraints is that D 9, 10, 11 cannot exceed less than or equal to F 9, 10, 11. That means, remember that each constraint has 1 cell on the left and 1 cell on the right. A range less than or equal to another range means D9 less than or equal to F9 and D10 less than or equal to F10 and D11 less than or equal to F11. Go back to the solver. That was just an image. Data solver. Add these 2, BC16 less than or equal to BC18. Add BC16 greater than or equal to, look, I'll have to drop the arrow and change the less than or equal to default, not to equal, but to greater than or equal to. At this point, I want to click OK because I'm finished adding. If I mistakenly click add, no big deal, just cancel. And confirm, make unconstrained variables non-negative, simplex LP, solve, read the message. It doesn't always say this, solver found a solution. And there is the answer. Let me display the class pack while you do that again. I've already prepared the Excel workbook. Do this, or I'll do it. You read the directions. This is what I'm going to do. Data tab, solver. Specify the target cell, it is B20. Specify max or min, max. Specify the changing cells, BC16 is the range. Specify the constraints. Add D9 through D11 less than or equal to F9 through F11. Add BC16 greater than or equal to BC14 in any order. BC 16 less than or equal to BC 18, add BC 16, not applicable. In the directions, integer could be added, but we're not going to do it here. Specify binary bin, that means 0 or 1. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Choose the simplex LP for linear program and check this box. Solve and make sure you get that solution. Let me do it one more time. Data tab, solver. And you see over in column K and L, I have images as well. Create those settings. If you lost them, close the file, don't save it and reopen it. It has the setting. I need to go on. I'm going to solve 3 linear programs today. A little bit too quickly for you to learn each of them. But if you put in the hour that I request after class, you'll be in good shape. Let's do some financial analysis. The answer is $3,250 per month is the total profit. Suppose I want to find the present value at 10% for 24 months. 10% is the annual interest rate, of course, the annual interest rate. The formula is equals minus the PV. Why do I put minus? Let's take it out. And the answer is negative. Excel uses the convention that if you give the bank mortgage payments, those payments can have any sign you want, plus or minus. And the amount of the present value of the mortgage is the opposite sign. Because the 3250 is positive, the present value is therefore negative. I don't want to look at the negative. So I'll say equals minus the PV. The interest rate, the rate per compounding period is F33, that's the 10%, divided by 12. Converting the annual interest rate to the monthly interest rate. F36 is the NPER, the number of compounding periods. We have monthly compounding. That is 24. And B20 is the payment per month, which has to be constant if you use this formula. The NPV is 70,430, which is of course smaller than 24 months multiplied by 3250. What's the rate of return if a $65,000 investment is needed for these 24 months of returns? Reflecting the fact that as often as not, a linear programming model refers to a system that does not exist. We are proposing buying these machines in order to realize $32.50 per month. The easiest way to solve that is to put minus 65,000 at time 0, that's the investment right now. Put 3250 24 times and use the IRR, internal rate of return, for the range of cash flows G42 to G66. 1.5% per month, which is outstanding. That compounds to around 20% per year. Try solving this problem without the minus sign. What's my rate of return if I have the privilege of giving you $65,000 right now, and I have the further privilege of giving you $3,250 at the end of each of the next 24 months? That's a pretty bad deal for me. I better put this minus 65. You give me 65 and I'll give you 32.50. The implied interest rate per compounding period is 1.5%. 2 minutes. Let me review the definition of a linear program. Choosing values of changing cells, also called variable cells. That is, how many A's do I make? And how many B's do I make? To optimize the target cell, there was only one target cell, the profit. To optimize means to maximize or minimize as applicable. Constraints limit the values. Marketing constraints, you can't make any more than 140 because you couldn't sell them. You have to make at least 75 of the A's. Operations constraints, you can't use any more than the available hours. Most clearly understood from examples. Next example, Burger King. Nope, that's the wrong one. B King, lecture and shell. You want to order lunch at Burger King. You've got a number of food and drink items that you have to pick from, a menu basically. Choose which items to buy in order to minimize the cost of the meal. But you're health conscious. You got to have a nutritious meal. Not too many calories, not too much sodium, not too many fat grams. I loosely refer to calories, sodium, and fat grams as bad stuff. At least so much vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron, the so-called good stuff. Formulate a linear program to choose which items. Burger King initial. Let me mention as a motivation, at an Informs conference, that's the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences, an optimization model for recommending meals to diabetic and pre-diabetic patients was described by Dr. Demetrius Bertsimas, an analytics professor, not a medical doctor. The model recommends specific meals and times during future weeks to, quote, minimize blood glucose. That's the problem diabetics have. Too much blood sugar that they can't process. And maximize taste preferences. Constraints including nutritional requirements, taste, the appeal of the food, as well as any allergies. Remembering the legend, blue-gray is data that cannot change. Burger King can change its prices or the calorie content, namely the size of the burger. It can if it wants, but not within the context of this analysis. We have a large list, but the idea repeats over and over and over. These are the food items. A Whopper. It has its own column. A double Whopper has column D. A Whopper Junior, column E. A hamburger, etc. We get to the chicken sandwiches, the salads, the dressings. Let's look at the target cell. Let me clear out the red border cells. The target cell, I'll mark it yellow, the next available one. It's over in the center of the screen. It's bright yellow on my screen, gold on that screen. In AD10, the sum product of C to AC10, comma C to AC6. For example, in row 10, we have the prices. An iced tea costs $1.69. Suppose we buy 10 iced teas, stress testing it. The cost is $16.90, right? 10 multiplied by $1.69 and everything else is nothing. Suppose we also buy 10 coffees. That costs $10 and $16.90. So the total is $26.90. If you're buying for a a Cub Scout group, for example. Well, coffee and tea, I guess, is a bad example for children. If you're buying it for yourself and that's your lunch, 10 iced teas and 10 coffees, I hope there's a restroom nearby. The target cell is fairly intuitive. Let's look again. We have a bunch of columns, one for each food and drink item. Each column has the label, the price, that's what we pay, the revenue for the company. It's got the nutrients. A Whopper has 650 calories, 910 sodium units. What is sodium measured in? Grams of sodium, I think. Appropriate units. Fat grams is 37. A double Whopper has these nutrients. The good stuff, the vitamins, each column gives the characteristic of that food or drink item. We want to choose how much to buy to minimize the cost of the meal. With the nutrition, we cannot have more than 725 calories in the meal. Obviously, this is specific to the individual. A marathon runner needs a lot more calories than I do. So does a lumberjack. And I suppose I need more calories than someone who's retired and disabled in a rest home, I suppose. The yellow cell is fairly obvious that the sum product in AD10, the sum product of C to AC10, namely the prices to your left, the numbers to your left, with the changing cells, gives the cost of the meal. Not so obvious at first glance is the fact that that very same formula applies to the nutrients. No, those colors are too similar on the screen. I want to copy that yellow cell down to that red range over here. Control C. Do you see the moving marquee? Select the destination, the red cells, control the red cells, and I do not want to paste. I get the cell comment repeatedly. I overrode my yellow. That used to be red. Let me undo and redo. I want to keep the red shading. I want to keep the borders. So I do not want to paste. This is what I was alluding to on the background assessment test. Paste special formulas. The moving marquee shows you I've already copied the yellow cell. Select the red cells, paste, special, formulas. I will review this in the review session on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Now let me get rid of the color. Let me get rid of all of this color. Well, let me get rid of the, no, let me not get rid of it yet. I want to talk. I create the formula in the yellow cell. I copy it to the clipboard. I select the red cells and paste special. I could paste, but it would be ugly. The numbers would be correct, but it would be ugly. Okay, let me get rid of the shading. Let's go to Data Solver. Alt print screen so you can see it better. Solve. Read the message, Solver found a solution. Control V. I told it to min, not max, minimize AD10, the cost of the meal, by choosing the changing cells or the variable cells, C6 to AC6, the red border cells with the quantities. And I have two types of constraints. The bad stuff is not too big, and the good stuff is at least so much. This, a first version of it, illustrates the fact that the model seemed to be reasonable, but the numerical solution made me realize that I left something out. The model was, given all these food and drink items, how many do you consume to minimize the cost of the meal, and it's got to be nutritious. But I forgot fractions. I summarized down in row 36. The first one, fractions allowed, that's ridiculous. I don't want to allow that. So I'm going to change it to integral amounts. I'll go back, the same model, data, solver, add. I'm going to specify the changing cells. And at this point, I have to decide whether I want them to be integral, abbreviated INT, or binary, abbreviated BIN. Binary means 0 or 1. Integral means 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. I think I would consider having 2 salads. So let's make it integral and not binary. I'll choose integral, although there's personal preference there. I set INT and the right side populated automatically. Once again, I canceled. Add the changing cells. Integral and binary apply only to the changing cells. INT I'll put in the middle. The range I identified, C6 to AC6. I'll populate the middle and the right side will populate itself, int. If I mistakenly hit add, no big deal. Just cancel because I don't have any more to add. Solve. Read the message, solver found a solution, all. Okay, it's better. 1 orange juice, 1 ice cream cone, 1 hamburger, but 1 light dressing. I'm unhappy with the fact that I'm buying dressings without salads. Integral amounts, here's a copy of the solution. So we're going to go to the next sheet in a moment, but let me give you 3 minutes to review this model as it stands before I go to the last sheet. At an interview, the interviewer asks the candidate what his biggest fault is. He replied, "I'm too honest." The interviewer says, "Oh, I don't really think that's a fault." And the candidate replies, "I don't give a damn what you think." I hope you can see that I'm smiling and I'm not really angry. Let's look at the next sheet called intermediate, which implies that there's yet another version coming. In fact, your homework asks you to extend this even further. So let's go to intermediate. I'm already there. I want to add additional constraints that the number of salads, let me call your attention with color. Remember, you're not supposed to use non-standard colors. Did I get that? Look at the green cells, column N through Z, 23 through 29. The summation of the number of salads in P25. is M6 plus N6 must equal the number of dressings. Formulas tab, trace precedence. Whatever number of salads I have, 0 or 1 or 2 of the different salads, must equal the number of dressings. Whatever number of drinks I have, that's the summation of vanilla shake plus chocolate shake plus strawberry shake, etc., through iced tea, must equal 1. Data solver, glance at the solver, which has the additional constraints. The bad stuff, the good stuff, unchanged. Here I used binary. And I added drinks equals 1 and salads equals salad dressings. Solve. Read the message, solver found a solution all. And there is my final solution. 1 double cheeseburger and one orange juice. That doesn't sound like it has a good taste combination. Orange juice is for breakfast or with rum, not with a hamburger. Well, of course, by definition, it's personal preference. So here's the third version. Before I give you 2 minutes, I want to go back to the class pack and read again a linear programming optimization model. We saw the intro prod AB. Now we've seen the Burger King. Choose values of changing cells or variable cells. That is, how many burgers do we buy of the Whopper, the Cheese Whopper, the Junior Whopper, and how many chicken nuggets sandwiches, and how many salads. Choose values of the changing cells to optimize the target cell, to minimize cost. Constraints. The number of calories is not too big. The number of fat grams is not too big. The amount of sodium is not too big. The amount of vitamin A is greater than or equal to the minimum, and so forth. Minimize cost. Let me give you 3 minutes to review that. And then we'll do an in-class problem kind of quickly. Let's go on. Page 11. The Mountain Investment Firm has $4 million to invest in 6 stocks. expected annual returns, standard deviations are shown below and in the shell. All funds must be invested, and you cannot invest a negative amount of money. The risk of a stock is defined to be the standard deviation of the stock multiplied by the fraction of the available funds invested in it. For example, the risk of stock 1 is 12% multiplied by B9 over J9. B9 is the money invested in stock 1. J9 is the available money. B9 over J9 is the fraction of the available funds invested in the stock. B9 over J9, let's see. The risk of a stock is the standard deviation multiplied by the fraction of the available funds invested in it. For example, the risk of the portfolio is the summation of the risks of the stocks. Formulate a spreadsheet linear program to maximize dollar return while portfolio risk is at most 10%. Text verbal. How much money do you invest in stock 1, stock 2, stock 3, stocks 4 to maximize dollar return without exceeding the allowable risk? Let's look at the target cell. If I invest $1 in stock 1, how much money do I make? 9%, right? I make 9 cents. I'm going to talk about a unit as a dollar, but a unit is really $1,000. Suppose I invest $100 in stock 1. I make $9, right? 9%. If I also invest 1,000 in stock 2, I make 110, don't I? 11% of this. What formula goes in the double black border, the green cell? This times this, plus that times that, plus that times that, plus that times that. The sum product of the expected returns, comma, the changing cells, which now shows 119, but that's just from the test. I don't know what the changing cells are. The risk of the portfolio is the next cell, that yellow or gold. You think about that for a couple of minutes. In Wednesday's confusion with the fire alarm, I don't think I told you the joke, husband in trouble. Did I tell you a joke like that? A woman is shopping for a dress. She texts a selfie of herself in the dress to her husband asking if this dress makes me look fat. He texts back resoundingly, no, but that's not a word. Spell checker changed it without his notice to M-O-O-O. So when he got home, his wife was not very happy. Moo. Let me show you how I solve this problem. I will email it before I go home tonight. I think I can zoom down a little. Oh, why don't I reopen it? Why don't I not? God damn. We were given in the shell the budget constraint. We just identified the target cell. Here's what I wrote as the portfolio risk. The sum product of B12, G12, that's the standard deviation range with look at BG9 over J9. That is equivalent to 0.123 times dollars in stock 1 over J9 plus 0.134 times dollars in stock 2 divided by J9 plus 0.125 times dollars in stock 3 over J9. I highlighted these yellow cells. Most analysts who are beginning would use helper cells. They would put the risk of stock 1 right in the leftmost yellow cell, the risk of stock 2. But this is equivalent to it. One, two, three. One is already given in the model. Let me see if I can display the relevant material simultaneously. One, already given. Two, the target cell. Three, the risk constraint. In my image, you cannot see what the target cell is, but it is J12. Take a moment and try to confirm that you get the solution. 0, 0, 0 in stocks 1, 2, 3. $0 in stock 6. 633 in stock 4, 3367. I rounded it. There's really fractions in there. I did not use integer amounts. You can invest $1,500 in a stock. I rounded it. Please go to Solver and try to get Solver to reproduce this solution. The 6 changing cells and the target cell. Any of you Zoomers get the solution? Call in yes or no with your name if you have the solution, please. Well, no, don't call in no, but if you have the solution, call in. I have it. I'm Joe Blow or Sally Sims or whatever. In the room, anybody got the solution? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have a bunch of shy Zoomers.
This is Anoop. I got the solution.
Who's talking?
Anoop.
Anub?
Yes, I got the solution.
Okay. I think I should do this when I get an echo in my headsets. I want the microphone, but not the headset. And I gotta know. Here's my cell phone number. It's on the syllabus, but write it down. I can stay a little bit beyond 4:30 for the Zoomers. Keep a record of it. You may call me anytime if it's important about the course. If you don't reach me, probably text me or leave a voicemail, whichever. Oh, I get so many darn telemarketer calls. It's probably better to text me. Today I got 20 or 30 from Apple saying my account had been breached. Reply with your social security number and your credit card number and your bank account number. I literally got 20 or 30 calls. So I've taken to not answering my phone if the caller ID doesn't show who it is. Text me saying, can I call you? And I'll do what I can. 615-473-5195. So I will email you the solution. Today we learned 3 things, and I want to go over homework 1. We saw the intro prod AB example. We saw the Burger King example. We see the mountain investment example. In each case, the linear program, let me go back to my definition. Choosing values of how much to invest in each of the 6 stocks to maximize the target sell, the dollar return. The budget constraint, limited. You can't invest $1 trillion in every stock. That would be great. You'd make a lot of return, but you don't have that much money. The risk, limited your investment in the risky ones. Most clearly understood from examples. Intro Prod AB, Burger King, and Mountain Investment. Typically they're huge, but we don't see that in this course. Popularity among Fortune 500 firms, the Sumproduct, which is heavily used in linear programming and also elsewhere. Color coding conventions, product manufacturing. Now page 9 and 10 is a good summary of how to use the solver. The exam will be open book, open notes, so you'll be able to refer to this. You remember I included this line in the intro prod AB. It was not applicable yet, but we saw int and binary we saw in the Burger King example. First int, and you may notice that last sheet in the Burger King had a binary choice. Let's look at homework set 1. I need to know your team members. Homework set 1. If you do the finance track, you have to do the mountain investment problem, which is a variation of what we just did. And you have to do the financial advisor problem. The first 2 sheets. Individual, well, there's a sheet tab for the mountain investment and financial advisor. If you do the operations track, you have to do the wine bottler problem and the share manufacturing problem. In addition, both tracks have to do the Burger King example to account for taste. Individual real estate problem. So there's the individual. Finance 1 team, Mountain Investment. Finance 2 team, Financial Advisor. And I need to get rid of this. Operations 1 team, Wine. Operations 2 team, Chair. Both tracks, Burger King. In green, around J28, explains the problem. This shell is from the class example. You have to change it. Create taste values for each item and devise a method to maximize taste without spending more than $5. For example, you could go with taste right there. You could give it a, if you don't eat red meat, or only in rare occasions, you could give the taste of all of these a 1. But you really like chicken, so you might give those a 9 and an 8 and an 8 and a 7. And you love Caesar salad, you might give it a 10. Those are data cells. You should define your scale. Is the scale 1 to 10, 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000? I cannot look at a scale of 9 and know if it's a scale of 1 to 10, a 9 is very tasty. If it's a scale of 1 to 1,000, a 9 is repulsive. So define your scale. Add a constraint that the cost is less than or equal to $5. And email to me, please follow the emailing instructions. It's all in the leftmost sheet directions. Okay, have a good weekend. I will walk slowly to my office waiting for text messages to see if anybody wants to talk. Yes, miss? Which one? Mountain Investment? 6 changing cells. 1, the would love to invest $1 trillion in each and every stock because I'd get 12% of $1 trillion and 13% of $1 trillion, et cetera. But I can't do that. The summation of the amounts invested must equal 4,000. 2, the target cell is the sum product of the expected rates of return, 9% for every one of these, plus 11% for every dollar in here, plus 1% for every dollar in there. The expected return and the standard deviation. The definition called for was 0.123 times this much money over 4,000 plus 0.134 times this much money over 4,000 plus 0.125 times this much money divided by 4,000. And that's what this in effect does. I can't hear you. Yes, I will email it to the class. I hope you're on the email distribution list. I'm going to email it to the same distribution list that I've been using.
Thank you.
You are welcome.